Kashmiri Pandits were singled out, hounded out of their homes and butchered mercilessly by the Islamist terrorists in the valley only because they were Hindus. A film on Kashmir genocide, the genocide of Hindus, has now brought the facts to the fore, something that the ecosystem was subverting for the last 3 decades. Today, the butcher of Hindus, Bitta Karate, Farooq Ahmed Dar, the man who pulled out Satish Tikku, murdered him in cold blood outside his home in Srinagar, is on trial. A Srinagar court will be hearing the family's appeal. There is no end to travesty in this case, viewers, and one by one, Times Now will tell you what went wrong in the last 3 decades. Let me quickly open this up. Ishan Wani, who's on the ground tracking the developments. Amita Vadva also joining us. And Sabyasachi is joining us from New Delhi. Ishan, quickly put the case in context for our viewers.
Well, yes, Satish Tikku was killed by, Bitta Karate, who confessed it in one of these videos, which you have seen several times on not only social media. And then the case, progressed for around 16 years before Bitta Karate secured a bail. The judges said that there wasn't enough, from the prosecution, push from the prosecution, and that is why he was granted a bail 16 years ago. Remember, Satish Tikku was killed in 1990 in Karfali Mohalla area of Srinagar, and following that, he was arrested. And later on, case went on for several years. But then, around 2005-2006, if I am right, he was given a bail, and since then he was out. Now the family has reapproached the court, saying that they should reopen and reinvestigate the case, given the fact that there are certain evidences with the family to prove that he is the person who is behind this particular killing. Now the first sessions judge at Srinagar court will hear this at 1:30.
Okay.
We are told that this is a fresh petition that has been filed by the advocate.
Now, I'm going to bring in Amita and Sabyasachi in just a bit, but Sushil Pandit is joining us, Vikas Raina also with us. Mr. Pandit, good morning. First of all, we can say it's a good morning today after 32 years, because Bitta Karate, the murderer of Satish Tikku and countless others, is on trial today. The system has a chance to redeem itself. Mr. Pandit.
Yes, on one hand, I am really pleased, satisfied that immense public pressure caused by Kashmir files has led to some action on this ogre called Bitta Karate alias Farooq Ahmed Dar. But I also smell some half-clever attitude towards this entire tragedy. We have been demanding for decades that this should not be considered as a stray murder, as something between Satish Tikku and Bitta Karate. This is a part of series of murders. Therefore, this should be called a genocide. And for trying genocide-related crimes, there have to be tribunals. There should be Nuremberg-type trial. Bitta Karate has confessed that he was asked to carry out that murder. He had instructions, which means it shouldn't be just Bitta Karate on trial. It should be the entire jihadi network that expelled all the Hindus from the valley. Satish Tikku was one of the murderers, and Bitta Karate was one of the murderers. There is an entire network of JKLF, of Hizbul Mujahideen, of Hurriyat, and that network survives. They have thrived over the last 32 years under the patronage of successive governments. This entire network should be on trial. Their leaders should be on trial. It has to be a genocide first conceded by the government, and then a genocide-related trial of all those criminals who actively participated, either by pulling the trigger or by carrying out, by giving instructions, by creating an infrastructure, by inspiring hate against Hindus before this murder was carried out.
Absolutely.
So unless until a genocide is recognized unless and until special tribunals and fast-track courts and special procedures are invoked. This would be considered another sham. After 32 years of dragging their feet in this trial, now they want to be done with just one trial and saying justice is delivered. That cannot be accepted. This cannot be the sole trial. We have to concede that a genocide was committed.
Well said, Mr. Pandit, which is why Times Now has taken this as a campaign to reopen the Kashmir files. And we are going after the ecosystem that has been in denial about the genocide of Hindus for 32 years, Mr. Raina. Imagine a situation where the man is saying, yes, I killed 20 or even more, 30 to 40 because I was asked to single out Hindus, and he goes scot-free.
Yeah, that is, I first of all, I fully agree with what Mr. Sushil Pandit ji said. This cannot be one on trial, in the sense this has to be everybody who was involved there at that point of time. It was not only people behind the gun, it was people behind those, the bureaucracy as well as the political patronage which was given to those. Everyone should be tried. But this is one step which we took. I am myself a victim of terror. My father was assassinated in 1997. And when we were, 2 years back, when we were finding documentations for these things, and because the person himself has confessed on record saying that he has killed people and still he was roaming free. So we took this step to take this further, and this is a big day today because the trials have started and a criminal application would be submitted today to the court, where status report of all the FIRs which were done against Bitta Karate would be reviewed and would be given, and simultaneously a petition would be filed to reopen all the cases.
Right, and Mr. Raina, allow me to come in here. I just want to make a quick point and bring in Mr. Pandit once again. Because you're talking about the status report, I'll tell you something that I don't think a lot of people are still aware. I want this fact to sink into you viewers. Bitta Karate killed Satish Tikku in front of his family members. And the police there, the system, the ecosystem, call it what you want to, did not even care to call the family members to take their statement, Mr. Pandit.
Yes, this is the fact. And what is also a chilling fact is that when the judge N.D. Vani released him on bail, he wrote on the bail order that I know this man is guilty of heinous crimes that carry severe punishments, but because the state is not interested in prosecuting him, because the state is not interested in pursuing the case, I have no other option but to release him on bail. My state was complicit in this cover-up. The entire system colluded with the murderers. And therefore, I demand, my entire community demands, that those who were complicit in this man roaming free, in this man marrying and raising a family, in several like him who were given passports, who traveled all over the world and bragged about killing us, they should all be brought to justice under one case, and that case should be the genocide of Hindus of Kashmir. Nothing short of that will be acceptable. This will be a sham trial after 32 years of dragging feet.
Absolutely. Vittal Chaudhary.
By them.
Yes, Mr. Pandit, agree with every word that you've said. Vittal Chaudhary also joining us. Mr. Chaudhary, are you surprised that the ecosystem is still in denial? They're still mocking it, like Mr. Pandit said, that this should not be treated as a stray murder. Hindus were singled out. This was a genocide of Hindus.
Absolutely, I completely agree with what Sushil said here. And not just the state has fed from our genocide. I mean, the ecosystem, they thrive on the genocide of Hindus. They have always thrived on it. I think that It is high time that Bitta Karate and the likes of Bitta Karate and the people who celebrated his homecoming, the lakhs of people who just got onto the road and welcomed and garlanded him when he was released by the court, even they should be tried because they are also complicit in the murders of the Hindus of Kashmir. It's not just the swift terrorists who picked up the guns, it's people who also connived with those people, who exonerated those people. Is the state also, is the machinery and judiciary who should be, they should be tried. And India doesn't have a genocide law to prevent any genocide and criminalize any genocide. It's high time the government of India enacts a law which criminalizes the genocide and prevents those people.
And to start with, let's have a commission. That has been a long-standing demand of the community. What is stopping the government from having a commission of inquiry, Amita?
Well, that is the point there, Pranesh, because what exactly is now being raised in the petition, I would want to bring to light for our viewers joining in at this point. This is a petition that has been raised by Mr. Satish Kumar Tikku's brother himself. Now, when the judicial magistrate in the Srinagar court will be sitting, he will be facing 3 points in these petitions that have been raised. One of them is that the family of Mr. Tikku is now seeking, as far as the status report is concerned, what exactly has happened in the case so far. Secondly, they want the investigating officer to actually submit a report and to also request that there should be a free and fair investigation that needs to be taken place. And thirdly, they are asking now for a court-monitored investigation also to be taken up until the point the charge sheet is filed. And also another point, because if we are talking about and discussing about Bitta Karate or Farooq Ahmed Dar, alias Farooq Ahmed Dar, Satish Tikku was one of the first victims of Bitta Karate. And also, as Mr. Sushil Pandit has pointed out, he was his friend. Mr. Satish Tikku was said to be his friend. That is what one of the interviews that Mr. Farooq Ahmed Dar, alias Bitta Karate, has confirmed that he was his friend at the time and he became his first victim. And you had pointed out it has been countless murders, cold-blooded murders that have been taken place. But till now, he was not convicted and he was out on bail in the year 2006.
You know, I really don't know what to say because it fills me with so much of anger and disappointment that it has taken the system 32 long years to even admit this petition and to get the wheels of justice moving. Now, Sabyasachi, you've heard the panelists. The entire community wants a commission of inquiry. Well, that we are yet to hear on that from the government. Here is a man who was scot-free and, like Mr. Pandit says, had a license to kill, was given a passport of patronage to flourish.
Oh, absolutely. After the movie Kashmir Files, now the victims, thousands of them, are coming forward to narrate their stories. And one of the major demands that they have put forth is to form a commission to look into this matter. And talking about Bitta Karate, he's a cold-blooded murderer who has allegedly killed more than 42 Kashmiri Pandits. And as we know that in the video, which we have seen several times, he claimed that Satish Tikku was his friend. He was a businessman. Satish Tikku was killed right before his family. So by this, we can understand what was going on inside these people talking about Bitta Karate and the rest. So clearly at this particular moment, it is very important that the government takes a step and make sure that the accused are put behind the bars and people get justice. People who had been avoided from justice for over 32 years, they has been waiting for their stories to be heard, for the government to take appropriate action, and this is the right time when the
absolutely in about 15-20 minutes from now, 15 minutes to be precise, the Srinagar court will start hearing this case. Ishan Vani, quickly sum up the developments for our viewers.
Well, yes, ever since this movie has come up, there has been a larger debate among Kashmiri Pandit community that how they have been denied justice over these years, and several of them are now demanding reopening of these cases. And interestingly, in some cases, there were FIRs which were lodged, but only to find out that these FIRs never existed in the record books of Jammu and Kashmir police. We have spoken to several of these victims who tried to reapproach the police and to figure out that was there any FIR lodged, but many of them unfortunately don't have these case records because they had to leave valley in a hurry, and that is why many of them could not lodge cases. But whoever has been able to lodge cases at that point of time, and where actually, fighting these cases, are trying to now reopen that case and reapproach the court so that there could be some justice that could be delivered. Although most of them say that it has been several years, because most of us believe, most of them believe that justice delayed is justice denied. But now finally some relief, given the fact that now they are trying to reapproach these courts and trying to ensure that the government pushes.
Welcome back to the biggest non-stop rolling coverage of the trial of butcher of Hindus, Bitta Karate. The state allowed genocide of Hindus. The system gave killers the patronage, and the ecosystem remains in denial and is mocking the plight of Kashmiri Hindus. Today, a city-based court in Srinagar has agreed to hear a petition seeking report on the progress of investigation, viewers, because Satish Tikku, who was murdered in cold blood by Bitta Karate, Farooq Ahmad Dar, does not even know about the status of investigation 3 decades later, 32 years and counting to be precise. Ishan.
Well, yes, exactly. It has been 1990 when exactly this incident took place in January, and since then, they have been in the court, and then Bitta Karate was arrested. As I said earlier, in 2005, he sought bail and got the bail. While signing that bail order, judge observed that there was not enough push from the prosecution, and that is since then he was out on a bail. Remember, he is in a jail or a different case that NIA is investigating. But now today they have approached court again, where first sessions judge will actually hear this particular case, which has now been filed. The family believes that they are hopeful of justice and trying to reopen all these cases, because he was out on a bail before around 2016, 2017. That is when he was re-arrested by the NIA in a different case regarding funding of civil activities.
That's a different case, and I want to underline the point that Sushil Pandit made, something that Times Now had also reinforced. This is what the judge said while granting bail to Farooq Ahmad Dar. And allow me to read this. The court is aware of the fact that allegations against Karate are of serious nature and carry a punishment of death sentence or even life imprisonment. But the fact is that the prosecution has shown total disinterest in arguing the case, which is why, Mr. Pandit, it is not just the killers, but the abettors and the ecosystem that must be punished too.
I completely agree with you, Pranesh. We are, in fact, victims of direct assault by those who were inimical to us, who hated us, who want us exterminated, and abatement by the system which was supposed to protect us. Those who were supposed to look after our lives, our families, they abetted in it. They were complicit in it. Those higher-ups in power who instructed the police, the investigation, the prosecution to not pursue this case are more guilty. So the political establishment, the bureaucracy should also be hauled up. There should be a very detailed investigation as to who all were complicit in this carnage. I must inform you and your viewers that this man was not only let free, he married a Kashmir Administrative Service officer. He became a tycoon. This school dropout urchin today lives a life of comfort and patronage. He was given clemency for dozens of murders he committed. This is a travesty, and therefore it needs a severe punishment, because all those who are interested in pushing us back into Kashmir and live as neighbors of Bitta Karate must be exposed as to what they are trying to achieve.
And the system, Mr. Pandit, should not stop at Bitta Karate. Let's also talk about the likes of Yasin Malik, who were legitimized by the ecosystem.
Hello and welcome viewers. You're watching Times Now with me, Richa Sharma, and this is our non-stop rolling coverage as far as justice for the Kashmiri Hindus are concerned. And finally, a city-based court has agreed to hear a petition seeking a report on the progress of the investigation against the former JKLF terrorist Bitta Karate in the murder case of Kashmiri Pandit, that is Satish Tiku. And in their application now, the Tiku family has urged the court to seek a status report of the investigation so far. And Sushil Pandit, do you also believe that this is finally a time that the Kashmiri Hindu and the Kashmiri Pandit families have been waiting for over 32 years? Do you feel there is hope as far as the investigation and as well as apprehending the accused in the case is concerned?
Yes, there is some glimmer of hope, but as I mentioned earlier, I must reiterate, this should not become tokenism. It should not be just one stray trial of one stray murderer. This is a network of jihad which was unleashed on us with the political establishment complicit in it, with the entire prosecution and investigation complicit. And therefore, it has to be termed as genocide, and the entire network that backed Bitta Karate, and several dozens of them, like Bitta Karate, they need to be prosecuted through a special tribunal. And all the victims awaiting justice for the last 32 years, justice. Of course, Satish Tiku's murder was the first murder he committed.
In fact, please stay with us, Mr. Sushil Pandit. We're also going across now to Ashutosh Taplu, who is the son of Tikalal Taplu, joining us on this broadcast. Ashutosh, certainly the families like yourself have been waiting for justice as well as certain apprehension as far as these accused who are still scot-free are concerned. Do you believe that there is hope now for you?
We are hoping last 32 years, waiting last 32 years. And we hope that at least Bitta Karate will be convicted, because he has very clearly accepted and agreed in front of the media that he has killed Satish Tiku and Kashmiri Pandit community members, 20 Kashmiri Pandit members. We hope that today he will be convicted under the NI.
Right. In fact, Vikas Raina...
should have been convicted much...
In fact, Ashutosh, we have seen as to how, and if we read out from the court's verdict that had happened way back in the 90s, the court had clearly stated that they do know that Bitta Karate is a criminal accused in the case. They do know of his heinous crime and acts, but we saw as to how the prosecution never really acted. They were disinterested in really fighting this case as well.
Agreed, absolutely right. Rightly, Sushil Pandit told all of you and explained very clearly that this is very unfortunate that even the Supreme Court and the Court of Law is not listing Kashmiri Pandits very clearly. And this is very unfortunate. And we hope that today, after the release of the movie, and now the government of India is trying to open their eyes now, which also I believe it should have been done much earlier. But if now today's present government saying that after the release of the Kashmir file, they have now clearly come to know what has happened to the Kashmiri Pandit community. So we believe now the judges of the court and the Supreme Court will also realize in the same manner and put everyone who has killed Kashmiri Pandit behind the bars.
And Ashutosh, if you could also with our viewers share your experience, your family's experience of what you had to go through in those years and how far you have been fighting for this justice and this court battle as well.
As per my case, Pandit Tikalal Taplu's killing is concerned, as per the government record, there is no record which says that Tikalal Taplu was killed. We don't have his FIR. No FIR was launched those days, and even I don't have the death certificate of Pandit Tikalal Taplu. In the court of law, how can they prove that Tikala Taplu was killed when there is no FIR and there is no death certificate of Tikala Taplu? Very unfortunate.
Absolutely. And Sushil Pandit, if you could also come in here, we have seen several such testimonies of family members alike who have shared they still do not have a death certificate for their family members who have lost their life. No recognition whatsoever from the authorities and the government in concern way back then and even now. All right, and Ashutosh, do you also expect that soon that recognition will be given to your family members, as you pointed out that your father, who lost his life and who was murdered, his death certificate is still not accessible to you? What hope do you have now that the court has taken cognizance of the matter and the case will be heard?
I'm sure the case will be heard. The case should have been much earlier. Much earlier the case should have been heard.
And Vikas Raina, if we could also come in, we have seen several such testimonies like Ashutosh coming in and sharing their plight, their agony that they have to share. There is no recognition whatsoever as far as these families are concerned. And finally, we are seeing a person like Bitta Karate might be brought to court and be turned into an accused as well, because he spent 16 years in jail and then he was sent out scot-free.
See, this is what is travesty of justice which has happened to our community. Like Ashutosh rightly said that even he couldn't get the death certificate of Tikala Tapluji. Even the FIR is not registered. So, see, this case is about getting justice. In the sense, 32 years, today we have filed a case and court has agreed to hear. First step is to get the status report of all the FIRs which were against Bitta Karate. You understand this thing, 32 years, there's no status report, there's nothing what happened to those cases, nothing what happened to Satish ji's case, nothing was done. In the sense, this is our pursuit for justice and our hope for justice is a long reeling battle which we are fighting as a community, and what Sushil ji and Ashutosh ji and even Vittal ji has said, this is not the end. This cannot be one-off case where they will do justice and all that. A genocide tribunal has to be formed where everybody who was involved, right from terrorists to the political patronages, to the bureaucracy, everybody, and even common people who gave shelter to these terrorists should be convicted. So this is what we have gone through, and today we are celebrating on this thing. I honestly feel that this is something which has to be done long back. It should have been done maybe 20-30 years back.
Yes.
Today we are fighting for status report. You understand? We have lost everything, and now we have to start from scratch to convict a person who on camera says that I have killed people. And
no action was taken against the same person. Let me also now bring in Neelashish joining us live. Neelashish, take us through some of the allegations of the family members and the petitioners in this case as well. They have mentioned that the investigation did not happen as it should. They were not even called in for questioning by the authorities back then.
Absolutely. Well, that is the main plight of the family members of Satish Tiku, where they have clearly said that after he was arrested in 1990, after Bitta Karate was arrested on very serious allegations of murder, he was not the investigation against him was not conducted in a proper manner. They allege that not a single member of the family was contacted by the investigating agency, and even to date they do not know the status of the investigation, and that is primarily what the family has sought. They have asked the court to ask for a status report. They want that the IO be directed to conduct a fair, impartial investigation, file a status report as to what exactly the progress in the investigation is, and also to file a charge sheet at the earliest. Let's not forget, in 2006, Karate was released on bail after being in jail for all that time. But the court noted that the manner in which the attitude of the investigating agency did not seem very proper. It was a little lackluster, and therefore there wasn't enough evidence or enough material in the case to keep him behind bars, and therefore they had to release him on bail. So today, the city court will in fact look into this aspect after the brother of Satish Tiku has filed this matter, in order to ensure that investigation is carried out in a proper, impartial manner, and the status of the investigation is also brought out to the fore.
Stay with us, Neelashish. Let me also now take a quick question from Vittal Chaudhary, who himself is a genocide victim. And Vittal Chaudhary, you have seen firsthand what exactly happened just 32 years back. And now that a city-based court has agreed to hear this petition seeking a report on the progress of the investigation, do you think that there is hope for the other families who are still awaiting justice like yourself? Well, at the same time, the ecosystem who mocked the entire issue, once again, it took a film to really bring back those memories, bring back those issues and open those files.
See, that is the travesty here, that it required a movie to tell the whole world what has happened to Kashmiri Hindus. Rather, we have been struggling for the last 32 years telling our story to keep. Pandit Iqlal Taplu was vice president of BJP when he was killed.
All right, we have some more breaking news coming in before we go back to our guests. Hearing in the court has now resumed. A city-based court, remember, has agreed to hear a petition seeking a report on the progress of the investigation. Let me now go across to Ishan joining us. Yes, Ishan, we are getting in this update of judges arriving in the Srinagar court.
जी बिल्कुल, वो शेयरिंग जो है शुरू हो चुकी है और 10:30 का टाइम दिया गया था, लेकिन जो फर्स्ट एडिशनल सेशंस जज हैं श्रीनगर कोर्ट के, उन्होंने अभी कुछ देर पहले ही ये सेशन शुरू किया है. 1990 की बात करें, इट वाज इन द 1990s व्हेन दिस केस एक्चुअली स्टार्टेड, व्हेन ही वाज किल्ड, एंड लेटर ऑन फॉर सेवरल इयर्स बिट्टा कराटे वाज इन जेल. बट उसके बाद जब 2006 की बात करें तो कहीं ना कहीं केस में प्रोग्रेस होती हुई नहीं दिखी, और उसके बाद जो जज है उन्होंने ये ऑब्जर्व किया कि कहीं ना कहीं प्रोसिक्यूशन की तरफ से एक लैक्सिटी दिखाई गई है, और जिसकी बेसिस पे उन्होंने उसको बेल दिया. हालांकि यहां पर यह बताना जरूरी है कि वो जो है किसी और केस में अभी जो एनआईए इन्वेस्टिगेट कर रही है कि मनी फंडिंग जो होती है उसमें जो है वो अरेस्टेड है और उसकी केस जो है अलग से है. तो ये देखना होगा कि नाउ व्हाट ट्रांसपायर्स इन द कोर्ट, बिकॉज दिस इज द फर्स्ट हियरिंग दैट हैज स्टार्टेड आफ्टर सो लॉन्ग. द फैमिली सेज दैट दे आर एक्चुअली pursuing this particular case to get justice from the court, because there has been a lot of time since he was out on the bail, and then several issues are there, like the FIR copies, as one of the guests said, that there is no death certificate. So how will they approach and prove that he was killed? That's a difficulty in these cases. Now there are not only these cases, there are other cases as well where we have spoken to the victims who have said that they were given an FIR number, but that FIR number never existed when they got and checked back.
All right, stay with us, Ishan, and we will be closely tracking all the developments as far as the court proceedings is concerned, and asking all our guests to stay with us. We slip into a short break now. News and updates continue on the other side. Stay tuned.